Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi. S&P Global today published its first ever thought leadership research on India called Look Forward, India's Moment, that focuses on the opportunities, risks and potential for India to be a global superpower in the decade to come. Joining me to discuss the highlights on this special edition of Easynomics is DK Joshi, the Chief Economist at CRISIL. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin by asking you to sort of tell us the key headline that emerges from this report about India's potential economic size.
Well, I think the first big headline is that we expect 6.7% GDP growth per year till 2031, and that will double the size of the Indian economy in dollar terms. Now, this growth is going to be driven primarily by capital because we have an investment thrust from the government and the private sector is in a position to start the investment cycle, although uncertainty is not permitting a full release of animal spirits at this juncture. The second driver of growth will be efficiency, which comes from the creation of physical infrastructure. Your connectivity is improving and your logistics costs are coming down. So that is a source of efficiency. And on top of that, the digital infrastructure also improves efficiency on the payment system side, on the delivery of subsidies to the masses. And also, I think it's a platform for innovation. So all these together, digital and physical infrastructure combined, I think they create an upside to the growth. Now, I think the only lagging part will be the labor, because I think the labor participation rates are very low. Unless we upskill in a big way and improve the labor participation force, the growth will not be very inclusive in nature.
Okay, one of the numbers that I just want to cite from this report is that India is going to grow at 6.7% from the current financial year to 2031 FY, and GDP will rise to 6.7 trillion from 3.4 trillion. But the more important thing, Mr. Joshi, is that per capita GDP will rise to nearly $4,500. Deconstruct that level of per capita and what it would mean for consumption and the overall economy.
Absolutely. See, what happens is when the per capita income begins to rise, I think after crossing a threshold, I think you see more compounding benefits of it. And I think we are about to cross that threshold. And if we maintain this growth rate and get to a per capita income of 4,500 by 2030-31, I think we will see a boost in the demand for a variety of goods and discretionary spending on goods and discretionary spending on services, because the spending on food items comes down as we grow faster, as the income levels go up. So it means improved demand for goods as well as for services in the economy. And I think so this growth is coming on a higher base now. So I think some of the compounding effects will be visible in terms of higher consumption.
Okay. Mr. Joshi, what are the risks to the outlook that have been outlined here?
Risks particularly are that while India is trying to grow its manufacturing sector, I think it faces an environment which is very different from what most of the East Asian tigers face, because at that time, the trade was opening up, economies were liberalizing, now you are closing. So in this environment, how we will be able to negotiate all the headwinds and I think create some tailwinds for us, I think that's going to be the critical factor. Geopolitics are very difficult to predict, but I think India will have to compete as well as cooperate in its national interest. And how it manages to negotiate and take advantage of some of the tailwinds that this phase of globalization offers, I think will determine whether you reach your targets or not, or whether you can grow faster than this. Otherwise, I think the growth can also slip. I mean, if we are not able to fully capitalize on this situation.
Explain the point about the need for more women in the workforce. How does that play out, given especially the likely demographics in the time frame that has been researched?
Participation in the labor force. The total men's participation is around 75% and women's participation is closer to 30%, little lower than that. And it has fallen over the last few years. So I think it's very important. And we all know, I think through various computations, that if the labor force participation goes up, the growth becomes more inclusive. I think more people are able to take advantage from that. And actually growth also becomes higher, I mean, if more people participate. So I think if we are able to manage this transition towards higher women's labor force participation, I think the GDP growth itself will get a couple of notches boost, I mean, out of that.
One of the other points is about venture capital flows, that India is likely to get a higher share of venture capital inflows. Explain that.
Because if India manages to grow fast in the emerging geopolitics, and India, as I said, I think is anyway becoming a hub of innovation because of its digital fast tracking of digitalization. I think all these things create opportunities for venture capital to play. I think there are very few countries where growth is going to be as strong, and India is going to be probably the fastest growing G20 country with this growth rate. So I think it is going to attract a variety of forms of capital, including FDI, venture, etc.
Since we are discussing rosy forecast, Mr. Joshi, if per capita goes up, overall economy goes up, obviously inflation will also go up, and that's always a concern. I wonder if there's any work that's been done on the likely inflation that we'll see in such a dynamic.
Our inflation typically goes up because of food items. I mean, food is 40% of the basket. I think and there are phases when food inflation stays low and our inflation remains closer to the target. By the way, this 6.7% growth looks high, but even before the pandemic, the decade before the pandemic, we grew at around 6.6% per annum. So it's not that we have not achieved these kind of growth over 10-year periods. We have done that. And we managed inflation also at lower rates. So I think it will eventually, India's inflation rate will depend on how we manage our food inflation going ahead.
All right, Mr. Joshi, thank you very much for joining us with that short but comprehensive analysis of India's movement. That was Mr. Dharmkirti Joshi, the Chief Economist at CRISIL. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. We'll be back with more. Till then, goodbye.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.